Everybody was dying at 27, but because the average takes into account deaths as well as births, and the average life expectancy was 27. When you look at all those things, you can see we've made tremendous progress. It's not enough, I agree. We need to do much better. But we've gone from that 16% literacy to over 72% literacy. We've gone from a life expectancy of 27 to a life expectancy of 70. So we've got some things right. Maternal mortality is down, infant mortality is down, life expectancy has therefore increased. Absolute poverty exists and there is inequality, but it is much better than it used to be. Of the poverty line. That's not a small number. So over 8 years of UPA, that's 80 to 100 million people who came above the poverty line, breaking free of poverty. So all those are good news that we can point to with a certain amount of pride. Having said that, it's not enough because obviously you still have a couple of 100 million people below the poverty line. And thanks to the COVID pandemic, the lockdown, the unemployment, we've definitely seen an increase in the number of people below the poverty line. Secondly, we have real challenges in what I would call human development. You know, there is, if you use modern language, there is a software of development and the hardware of development. The hardware is things like roads, highways, ports, airports. Those things the government is giving some attention to, and we have seen good progress, for example, in highway development and so on. But the software of development is things like education, skill development, healthcare. Those are areas where, frankly, we have not done so well. We have so many people in our country who are unemployed, but who don't have employable skills. We have so many people who have degrees, but have no jobs because their degrees are useless in the modern world. So there are a number of things we need to get right on the software of human development so that we can actually become a developed country. In Kerala, you're far better off than in many parts of northern India. And I should tell you that we should understand that we may think we have a long way to go, but that shows our own ambition. There are many parts of India which are far behind where Kerala was in the 1960s even. So let us build on what we've got, become more strong, more prosperous. I was very happy to see so many girls amongst the toppers here. This is a strength of Kerala. This is an amazing strength of Kerala. If you want to become a developed country, you cannot confine your children, your female children, to the home. They have to be in school, they have to be in college, they have to learn, and they have to be able to make their full contribution professionally as doctors, as teachers, as engineers, whatever they want to be. That's up to them. But in Kerala, we allow it, we encourage it, we promote it. In other parts of India,
in future, how could it help to enrich our human resource?
Well, the second part of your question is easy to answer. Of course it will, because the world is getting more and more digital, more and more digitized. And therefore, if you improve digital education, of course, it will help across the board with our development. But what do we do about digital inequality? That is a very serious question. There are very, very many aspects to digital inequality. The first, and perhaps most important, is access to the digital world. Sometimes all sorts of barriers come up. There is a poverty barrier. People are at such a basic level of poverty that they don't have access even to a mobile phone, a smartphone, let alone when it comes to something like a computer or anything more sophisticated. Second problem is the question of language. Something like, well, the vast majority, over 70% of the world's internet materials are in English. What happens to those who don't know English? How much are they getting a much more limited version of the internet? Third is sometimes gender. There are many places where men have monopolized access to the internet and to digital technology, but women have been excluded. That becomes a problem also. So all these kinds of inequality exist. There are further disparities between and within countries. So you have some countries, for example, in Finland, digital access is a human right according to their constitution. So if you don't get broadband Wi-Fi, you can sue the government for violating your human rights. For people in developing countries, it is an absolute blessing to actually have access to the internet. And therefore, not everyone does. Even things like the speed with which the digital broadband connection to the panchayat office but nothing to people's homes. Right? So this is where technology is going to provide the answers. One possible answer, definitely, is through simplifying access. If all of us were accessing the internet on our mobile phones, then we would not have to worry about access to an internet cafe or to a computer or to a desktop, because then we would be able to have it. But can we have affordable mobile phones that are capable of access? Some companies are working on it, and some companies are planning to give us mobile phones for as cheap as 4,000 or 5,000 rupees that can reach the internet on a telephone line. And now all of these things will change the way in which we relate to the world. And India, when I came into politics in 2009, you know that only 16% of all Indians had access to the internet in any form. And smartphones didn't exist. You had phones, but you always had to go to an internet cafe or to a computer to go on the internet. Today, just 13 years later, I think something like 70% of the country's phones are smartphones, and people use them to access the internet. So you're seeing simplification that way. The government has to do much more to lay the broadband infrastructure. If we have more broadband last mile connectivity in every village, then you'll certainly redress inequality. Because, for example, a lot of the offshore businesses, where you're sitting in Hyderabad, Cyberabad, or in Gurgaon, and you're answering calls and requests being made in England and America, if you had good high-speed broadband, why can't you do that in a village? What difference does it make? Why do you have to be in a big city? You can transform the rural development of India by providing good digital connectivity even in villages. And then the people of the village can initially come up and take advantage of these things. So there is tremendous potential. But you're right to point to it. There is digital inequality. I once said in a speech at the United Nations, I said the internet revolution, unlike the French Revolution, is one where there is a lot of liberty, little fraternity, and no equality. That is what we're seeing. You know, the famous slogan of the French Revolution was liberty, equality, and fraternity. We don't have that in the internet revolution. So we need to bring it about. Thank you for pointing out the importance of that. And good luck in what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
With that, we come to the end of the interactive session.